Instead, she sees someone dressed as a full-blown clown, because this time there was a clown suit and gun hidden in the back of the car. Just so you guys know, I'm still drinking out of a Halloween mug, even though it's November, like week 2. Should I get a turkey mug? Or a gravy boat? Hey guys, welcome back, or if you are new, welcome to my channel. My name is Courtney, and I'm here to give you the creeps. And this story is gonna give you the creeps, alright. If you're into true horror, I highly suggest that you hit the subscribe button and turn on the bell so you're notified every single time that I upload, because I come on here every single week and tell you guys another true and scary story. So today's Unresolved mystery video is based on one of my deep-seated fears. You guys probably don't know this, but I have a very short list of very real, but honestly, like, kind of weird fears and phobias. Basements, stairs, bathrooms, mirrors, and clowns. That said, this video isn't just inspired by my very obvious chlorophobia. It's also inspired by a terrifying internet trend that I've seen resurfacing here in 2020, as if this year wasn't terrifying enough as it is. And the trend that I'm actually referencing is something called the clown trend. For those of you guys who don't know what I'm talking about, this clown trend started a little over a decade ago here on the internet. It started in 2008 and then recurred again in 2016 and is now happening for a third time in 2020. And it's basically just a trend where people are posting either pictures or videos of encounters with clowns that are seemingly intending to cause harm. I hate this trend, and I'm sure you guys probably dislike it as well. I mean, what is more terrifying than a clown who is trying to attack you with an axe? Nothing. Nothing is scarier than that. And when I found that this trend was resurfacing here in 2020, it reminded me instantly of this case, and I knew that I wanted to talk to you guys about it this week. So today, we are going to be talking about the mysterious case of Marlene Warren and her encounter with a killer clown. My anxiety is already through the roof. Great. Cool, 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 cool. So let me set this up for you guys. In the spring of 1972, Marlene Aarons marries Michael Warren, and they instantly move into this beautiful home in Palm Beach, Florida. Now this home and neighborhood specifically were a fairly pricey area, so almost instantly they started to procure other properties and revenue streams to pay for this home that they lived in. Now one of the properties that the Warrens actually purchased was a used car dealership that Michael ended up running on behalf of Marlene as well as himself. And that was kind of how he made his money, or it was like his day job, if you will. Now despite the fact that Michael was running this car dealership and kind of was the boss over there, this company as well as a majority of the other properties that they had purchased as a couple were in Marlene's name, which meant that she was the sole owner of the majority of their properties, and she was also technically her husband's boss. That being said, guys, for like a long while, things were really good for the Warrens. Their marriage was successful. They were successful. They had all of these different revenue streams that were giving them a decent chunk of money, and they were seemingly living the dream. Like, kudos to them, really. However, this picturesque lifestyle that the Warrens built together came tumbling down on May 26th of 1990, when the tragedy strikes. Now, on this day in particular, Marlene Warren is actually home by herself. She's doing, you know, whatever it is that real estate investors do, looking at property listings, I guess, I don't know. And at some point that afternoon, she ends up hearing the doorbell ring, which kind of startled her because she wasn't, you know, expecting company. And despite the fact that she wasn't actually expecting any house guests that afternoon, she still went to check the door. And what she found was terrifying. Because when she opens the door, she doesn't see a regular person standing there. Instead, she sees someone dressed as a full-blown clown. I would have slammed the door in their face, like, no, 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 no. That being said, this clown is carrying a bouquet of flowers along with 2 balloons, and Marlene kind of puts it together in her mind that she's receiving some sort of an anonymous gift. So Marlene accepts these gifts, and then she thanks the clown before starting to close the door and go about her business. Then, at this point, the clown pulls out a gun and shoots Marlene at point-blank range in the face. Do you see why I'm scared of clowns? So like, this obviously causes a commotion in the neighborhood. This very loud sound for seemingly no reason is going to draw some attention, okay? And for that reason, neighbors are starting to walk outside immediately following the gunshot, thinking that maybe a transformer blew, a car backfired, or maybe it's exactly what we think it is, and that's terrifying. And what they find is a person dressed in a full clown costume walking away from the Warrens' front door. The individual remains calm and just casually walks out to their car, which was a white Chrysler LeBaron. They get in and they drive away. No big deal. Just a clown, going about my business. Now, once this perpetrator left the scene, Marlene's neighbors ran over to the Warren residence because obviously some shit went down with this clown, right? And when they walk through the door, they find Marlene lying on the ground. And somehow, by the grace of God, she was still alive. I know. So immediately, paramedics are called and she's taken to West Palms Hospital, where she's admitted into critical condition. However, after 2 days of literally fighting for her life, Marlene succumbs to her wounds on May 28th of 1990. This is when her death was immediately ruled as a homicide, and investigators plunge into an investigation to find this killer clown. Now, just 2 days into this investigation, on May 30th of 1990, investigators find a white Chrysler LeBaron, which they believe to have been the getaway car used on the day of Marlene's murder, abandoned in a Winn-Dixie parking lot in Royal Palm Beach. And now that I'm saying that out loud, I think I've been there. And that's terrifying. And upon searching this car, investigators find red and brown hair samples. Interesting. That said, even though they had these fibers and hair samples, given the state of DNA testing at this point in time, investigators weren't actually able to figure out who this hair belonged to, sadly. So they went ahead and just put like a little pin in that discovery to look into at a future date, if necessary. That being said, guys, at this early stage of the investigation, investigators are starting to theorize that this crime was committed by someone who was either within the Warren family or close to the Warren family, because at least on Marlene's side of the family, there was some sort of a fascination with clowns. And by fascination, I mean that her parents specifically collected clown figurines, which makes my skin crawl, if I'm being honest. And given this clown-centric fascination, along with the fact that this murder took place in May, like it's not like it's spooky season or something, investigators felt like it was too coincidental that the perpetrator was dressed as a clown on the day of Marlene's murder. Like, that's just a bit too shady for me, okay? And for that reason, investigators decide to look to people who are close to the family when creating their persons of interest list. And when I say people who are close to the family, I mean 2 individuals in specific, okay? Okay, so get this. Apparently, at some point during this investigation, investigators receive an anonymous tip from a female caller regarding 2 individuals that had a pretty, strong connection to Marlene Warren. The first, funny enough, was her husband Michael. Now apparently, there had been some rumors swarming around that their marriage wasn't as happy and successful on the inside as it seemed on the outside. And it was also really apparent to investigators and just like people around the town that he benefited a great deal from Marlene's death, seeing how he would have received ownership of all of these businesses and revenue streams that were originally in Marlene's name. Now, investigators thought that this would have been a pretty strong motive, so they ended up reaching out to Michael and were like, hey, what were you doing at the time of your wife's murder? And he had claimed that he was with his friends at a racetrack that day. However, as off the wall as that alibi seems, they ended up looking into it, reaching out to Michael's friends, and find that that is an airtight alibi. That being said, when they really looked into Michael Warren's case, things still seemed a little bit shady, so they just kind of put a pin in him as a suspect and moved on to the second name that this anonymous caller gave them. And that was the name of 26-year-old Sheila Keene, who at the time was working for Michael Warren at this car dealership. And apparently there were rumors around the office that Sheila was spending a little bit of quality time with the boss. Gotta love office politics. So again, investigators approached both of these individuals and asked them like, hey, did you happen to be having an affair at the time of Marlene's murder? And of course the 2 of them denied these allegations, but it was pretty clear that there was something shady afoot. Alright, and for that reason, at this point in the timeline, investigators kind of came up with this theory that it was possible that Marlene and Michael may have been in cahoots when it came to Marlene's murder. So from there, investigators kind of start to poke around with this theory and find some interesting tidbits when it comes to Sheila Keene. Now apparently, on the day before Marlene's murder, an individual who fit Keene's description walked into a local costume shop immediately after they closed, and they were demanding a Halloween costume in May. Now, according to this shop owner, the individual was very aggressive about needing a costume that day, and that they were very adamant about the fact that they wanted a clown costume. Like, why do you need that? you know? And after a little bit of back and forth, the shop owner just decides that it's not worth the argument and ends up just selling her the costume just to get her out of the store. Like, go away. After purchasing this clown costume, the woman leaves the shop, and that was the end of it, or so we thought. However, there are other individuals who claim that they saw a woman that fit Sheila's description in a supermarket buying flowers that very afternoon. Now, it was at this point in the timeline that investigators are really starting to get frustrated with the fact that they can't pin this on Michael and Sheila. Like, they know that they had something to do with the murder of Marlene Warren. However, all of the evidence that they had was completely circumstantial. For example, they knew that there was an alleged affair between Sheila and Michael. However, they didn't have any actual proof that the affair took place. All they had were rumors and weak office politics. They also knew that Michael financially benefited from Marlene's death, but it wasn't enough for them to actually tie him to her murder. For that reason, investigators kind of hit this brick wall with the investigation, and the case itself goes cold in the fall of 1990. That being said, guys, in October of 1990, Michael Warren was arrested for some shady dealings that he had going on at the car dealership, and he eventually went to prison on charges of racketeering and odometer tampering. However, on December 31st of 1997, after 3 years of being in prison for these charges, Michael Warren is released. Like, Happy New Year, you're free. That being said, guys, after Michael Warren is released from prison, we don't hear anything about him or Sheila King, for that matter, for a very long time. Like, they are laying low. However, the pair breaks their silence in August of 2002 when they finally announced that they had gotten married in Las Vegas. That's kind of funny though, because I thought that you weren't romantically connected at all. What's up with that? Now, their marriage was also something that was pretty circumstantial when you compared it to the case of Marlene Warren. However, it was definitely something that investigators took note of when they reopened the case in 2014. It was also at this point in the investigation that investigators remember those hair and fiber samples that were found inside of the getaway car back in 1990 and decided to send those out for chemistry and testing to see if they could figure out who the hair belonged to. And boy, did they find out who that hair belonged to. Alright? Because when the results came back from the lab, investigators found that the DNA samples matched that of Sheila King. We got her. Yes, we did. So, on September 26th of 2017, Sheila King is finally arrested and charged with the first-degree murder of Marlene Warren. And now that investigators finally have her in custody and charged of this crime, they were not gonna let her out of it. No. They were not. So immediately, investigators started to build as strong of a case against Keene as they possibly can. And in the process, they make another shocking discovery in the case of Marlene Warren. So get this, guys. In November of 2018, a man named John Warren Jr. comes forward with an eyewitness account on behalf of his late father. Now, apparently, John Sr. had worked for Michael Warren at this car dealership, and it was pretty clear that Warren hadn't been the best boss to John Sr. He always had him doing stuff that, like, John didn't want to do, and that stuff usually tended to be illegal. And one of the things that Michael regularly had John do was take cars swimming. And this term basically translated to dispose of a car in a river for insurance money. Shady. So apparently, on one evening back in May of 1990, Michael Warren asked John Sr. to do just that. Take this car out to the bridge, throw it off of the edge into the river below. Okay? Great. However, this time was a little bit shadier than the previous times that John Sr. had done this for Michael, because this time, there was a clown suit and gun hidden in the back of the car. Now, that said, guys, John Sr. goes about his business as usual on this evening in May of 1990 because he doesn't want to get in trouble for all of the times that he had done this previously by going to the police for this one occasion. So, after years of carrying this guilt and suspicion with him throughout the entirety of his life, he makes a deathbed confession to his son John Jr. with the entirety of this story. Now, obviously, John Jr. takes this information and is like, holy crap, I need to tell somebody about this. Like, this is not okay. So he goes to the investigators who are working on Marlene's case and tells them the entirety of the story. Now, that being said, guys, with all of this new information, investigators immediately went out to this area in Palm Beach County to start searching for this car along with the clown costume and handgun. However, I believe at this point in the timeline, they have yet to find that vehicle or those items within it. Now, as far as Sheila's trial goes, I don't believe that they have made any sort of progress there. They do have a court date in April of 2021. However, as of right now, due to the pandemic, they ended up having to kind of pause things, which means that this case is unresolved. I cheated this week with the Unresolved mystery, sorry guys. However, as things start to progress within Sheila's trial, I will definitely keep you updated with anything that comes out of that situation. But with all of that in mind, guys, I think that's pretty much it for today's video. I know it was a very long one. I hope you guys enjoyed it. It really freaked me out. That said, if you made it all the way here to the end and liked what you saw, make sure you give me a big thumbs up. It really helps out my channel. Also, leave a comment down below letting me know what your weirdest fear is, because I feel like my fears are so strange and I just want the validation that I am not the only one that's scared of basements, you know? And finally, guys, thanks so much for watching. My name is Courtney and I run a true horror channel here on YouTube. Like I said at the beginning of this video, I like to come on here every single week and tell you guys another true and scary story. So if that's something you're interested in seeing more of, make sure you hit the subscribe button and turn on the bell so you're notified every single time that I upload. And with that in mind, I'll see you all next week for another new video. Bye.